Hi, this is Siofra's Magic Alcove, and I'm Siofra Bradigan. So, as I wander around the internet, I come across different notions and ideas and things like that I think are worth thinking about and talking about. The one I came across most recently was the concept that pagans are wrong about their not worshiping deities, but about working with them as opposed to worship. The person who proposed this definition of what we're doing. Um, their logic on the face of it seemed to be sort of sound, and there wasn't any glaring errors right out of the gate. And they felt they were fairly persuasive and that they were correct in their assumptions. Made me think about it because, I want to know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, etc., and what it is exactly. So, in looking up the definition of worship, the definition of worship is basically respectful devotion. Now, devotion is something that we can do with a god in the sense, or goddess, in the sense that we devote a certain amount of time and energy to working with them. Loving, honoring, and obeying someone who deserves our highest regards. So, this is where things get, in my opinion, a variable. So, loving, honoring, and obeying. We certainly honor the deity by trying to make an environment that is pleasing and compatible with the energy that we're trying to connect with. This is just sensible. If you're going to talk to a fish, you're not going to take it out of the water and have a conversation and expect it to be able to answer. You're going to have gear and transform yourself into something that can exist under the water to communicate with the fish in order to interact with it in its environment. And simplified as it is, I think it is a good example of what it is we're trying to do. Each deity that's out there has a very different kind of energy, aspects, and so forth that they put out. So if I have a need for protection, I'm probably not going to go to a basic um, deity that's just there to enlighten people, let's say. I'm going to look for a warrior god or goddess if that's the kind of protection I'm looking for. If I'm looking for enlightenment, then I'm going to go to a softer form of deity that's out there. So I'm going to try and modify who I'm looking for based upon what the specific needs that I have at the time are. And that's certainly how I've encountered a lot of the different deities that I've come across. Some of them have just noticed me. I'm not sure exactly why, but they have. And have, come along and said, hey, I'd like to help you with this, which is kind of cool when that can happen. But most of the time in the beginning, we have to work at um, creating the right environment to invite a deity in. So we want it to be pleasing to their energy. So if you're looking to talk to a Martian kind of deity, you're going to have a lot of reds and fire and maybe weapons, or, if that's your thing around. And if you're looking to talk to a Venusian kind of deity, you're going to have soft, flowy things, water, green, copper, things that are more compatible with that kind of energy. And in a sense, you can think of this like music. I thought music was a good analogy. You are tuning yourself, you are the instrument, and you are tuning yourself to be pleasing and noticeable to whatever forces you are trying to interact with. So that would be honoring. I reject the whole notion of obeying. That's where I think we seriously differ in what we're doing versus what this individual thinks we're doing, because obeying implies a loss of free will, a giving up of your ability to make your own choices and decisions, which is completely against my personal belief system, as you well know, because taking personal responsibility for your own spiritual development is what I think this is all about. Deciding what kind of an individual you're going to be, shaping yourself, your own spirit, your being, and so forth. And interacting with and working with different deities can be one path that can help you along with that. It can teach you things about a specific kind of energy. When I was living up north with my kids, just me and my son and my daughter, one of the forces I decided I needed to become aligned with was the mother bear. And maybe not specifically a deity, but it serves the purpose for the illustration of this. Mother bear has very specific kinds of energy. And one of the things that I admire about the bear was her ability to protect her cubs and to discipline them at the same time. Healthy boundaries was it was sort of the beginning of me discovering what healthy boundaries might be and how to slowly develop them, and wanting to be a good mother and protecting my children. This is it was a conscious choice on my part at the time to connect with that energy, to learn how to do that. And that's where we can transform ourselves depending upon the choices that we make. When I was in Santa Cruz, I connected with Kali, again for protection. I needed to have a sense of personal power and independence. I was getting out of an abusive relationship. I'd been assaulted. I was afraid of the person who assaulted me, which is what propelled me into taking the self-defense classes and then going through the incest survivors group to start dealing with my own trauma so that I would be coming from a place of power and not uh, from a place of anxiety, fear, and helplessness, feeling of powerlessness. And so Kali became a goddess that I connected with. And I connected with her in order to find that core strength, that core power, that fortitude, that not willing to take any gaff from anyone kind of thing, of being in charge of my own environment and of my space. And I, learned a lot from her. And each deity that I connected with has taught me something important about myself and helped to shape the person I want to be. But I haven't worshiped any of them. I still maintain my identity, my will, my ability to make choices and mistakes and to decide my own path. So the idea of tuning ourselves to an energy that we're looking to interact with, I think, is a helpful one. Because if we think of melody, and there's like different kinds of chords, different keys, and so forth, each key is slightly different, minor keys versus major keys, and you know, um, most chords have some kind of melodic compatibility in them. And using that analogy to tune ourselves, tune our energies, become more receptive to receiving information. We can even see ourselves as an instrument in that sense, not as an instrument of a deity's will, but as our own instrument in order to tune our own instrument to the right frequency to be able to interact with these different forces and whatnot. So it was sort of interesting mulling over that I've done the last week and a half or so, I think, since I ran across her definition of what we're doing. And she in this case thinks of herself as a pagan. She just thinks that she's figured out something the rest of us have missed, which of course smacks a little bit of ego and hubris, but haven't we all been there, right? Um, but that's the whole point of this is I didn't automatically reject it out of hand. I thought about it. I mulled it over. I looked at how I interact with deities and so forth. I have statues, all kinds of statues in my room, um, some forms of the different goddesses that I've worked with that I've made with my own hands or painted, and each one of them was a tuning of me into their energy to be able to interact with that sphere, like working with Artemis and my statue of her and the moon and all the lunar stuff that's associated with it, and making the lunar wand another tuning instrument that I created in order to bring that out in myself and to help me become more receptive to those forces when I'm in the right frame of mind for interacting with that specific energy, the lunar energies and so forth. And really, um, good ritual, that's what it's about. It's about creating an environment, a space, tuning it with sound, music, song, drums, voices, the colors that you choose, what you wear or don't wear, depending on what tradition you have. All of those things that go into making a powerful ritual. It's all about that. It's all about an invitation. It's like you're creating a giant invitation to a very specific kind of energy to enter into your circle or your life or your spell work or whatever else it is that you're doing, and to get an energetic assist or an understanding, comprehension of the very specific energies that you're working with to help you move in the direction you want to go. And in some cases, see the pitfalls that might be ahead. So the idea of free will is sort of at the core of this whole thing, in my opinion. I do not feel like I'm giving up my free will. I'm making all my own choices and decisions, who I want to work with, when I want to work with them. That's one of the reasons why I'm eclectic. I am not devoted to a single pantheon or single deity or so forth. For some people, that is a good path, at least for a period of time, if not for a lifetime or two. And I have remembrances of being dedicated to different deities at in different lifetimes, which may be why I'm more flexible as far as that goes now. But remembering what it was like to be in a temple to Isis or a temple to Aphrodite or any of the other various gods and goddesses that I have remembered from different lifetimes. The thing that they have in common is the fact, even though all of them are different and have different um, not needs, different things that they like, things that are compatible with their energy, um, the underlying energetic focus of everything that happens, from the building of the statue to the decoration of the temple to the music that is played in the temple to the prayers or the songs that are sung by the people who are there, is to tune them to that specific god or goddess's energy and to become more open, I guess, to receiving that information and being able to communicate. Not everyone works with gods and goddesses. Some people work with ancestors. I think the same thing applies, however, with ancestors, that if you make if you're working with an ancestor and your approach happens to be letting them make your decisions for you, I don't see that as healthy from a psychological, emotional perspective, or from a magical one, because your authority comes from your choices and your ability to make those choices and to stick to the choices that you make, even while you're learning whether they're working or not. Um, and this is how we evolve our own individual and separate paths, which is a-okay. We're all very different individual people, have different needs, we're in different levels of development. Everyone starts somewhere, and the whole process of learning is experimentation, I guess. So if you're working with ancestors, since I don't work with ancestors, this is a guess. So those of you who do can let me know if my assumptions are wrong about this. But my vision of working with an ancestor is to gain the wisdom that they have and the view that they have for not being in the physical form anymore, to give you warnings about what might be coming, to give you advice about what you might be meeting or seeing or whatever, to be there as support, protection. Yeah. But not to mold you into the perfect vessel that they want in order to go into the future. Seems like that would not be good to me. Could just be me. Maybe it's a good thing for people who work with ancestors. I don't know. Like I said, it's one of the things I don't do because I have too many ancestors. I'm like, which ones? The ones for the body I happen to be in, the ones for the other lifetimes that I remember. Um, yeah, for me, it's a concept that hasn't taken hold. And for those that it works for, I think it's great because it's probably a lot less cluttered than than me, as far as, you know, being an eclectic and moving from energy to energy depending on my needs, and pantheons not mattering to me. I know some people will find that horrible and confusing. That's why we're all different. I'm always very interested in the fact that the Hindu deities seem to really take a shine to me, and some of the Norse ones too. And I'm just like, okay, I don't know why, but alrighty then. Good to know. I guess I have a good energy compatible with a number of different pantheons. But when you're starting a path, these are things to consider. Do you feel strong enough in yourself to work with a deity without giving over your free will to them and making them make decisions for you instead of making decisions for yourself? This is how we end up in cults. We don't want to take the time, the effort, and the risk of making all of our own choices and decisions, because it is definitely a risky endeavor. We can make some definite mistakes. So we look to either a deity or an individual who seems to have it all together to show us the way and tell us what to do, to give us the steps to take in order to make our dreams come true, or to save the world and the planet, or whatever the big picture might be that they're selling. In my opinion, anyone who is trying to get you to do what they think is right for you is probably a charlatan, or at least they have an ego that is a problem because they think they know what's best for others. And in reality, no one knows what's best for someone else. You can only know what's best for yourself, and even then, sometimes we're wrong. So we're not even always right about our own selves, let alone other people. And remembering that is important when we walk along this path. Whatever we define the path as, and whatever tools we use in order to get around and get there. I mean, I have my bear, I have my deer, I have my panther in the animal kingdom helping me out. I have different gods and goddesses that are there to assist, like the Garuda who volunteered to protect our group, and Ian and I personally. Um, yeah, and each one has got its own tone, tune, flavor, melody, chord, because variety is existence. If we look outside our windows, the one thing we'll notice everything is different. There's not one kind of tree, not one kind of animal, not one kind of bird, not one kind of insect, because variety is kind of the foundation of it all. And each has its place. No one better than or more than another. It has its own unique flavor and niche and purpose, I guess. And I guess that's where it is that people are always looking for a higher purpose. Being alive doesn't seem to be satisfying for most people. I don't understand that. But that is a problem that a lot of people face. They're looking for some kind of greater purpose, a reason for being alive other than being alive, which is the gift that we've been given to exist, to interact with, to experience, to question, to wonder, to look out and experience beauty and awe. These are the things that we have that are here. So when I consider big questions, I was thinking about like that weird guy that came when I was pregnant with my daughter and spouting about Jesus coming in with his spaceships and killing all the people who didn't know they weren't supposed to eat cheese and drink milk and yogurt and stuff and were going to die from the bubonic plague. And I just looked at that and I thought, do I want to hang out with someone who would do that? No, I wouldn't. So I'm going to go with everybody else. And I've seen other situations like that where it's like, okay, if this is indeed true, if I give them the credit of the possibility that it could be true, what do I want to do? And fear is not a good motivator for me. It just doesn't seem to work, at least not at this point. A lot of people are controlled by fear, the fear of punishment and so forth, which is the whole point of worship and obeying. Because the other side of not obeying, if you're following a deity that requires it, is if you don't do what they tell you to, then you get punished. And that's a relationship I'm not interested in. That's too much like my father in this life and probably my father in many other lifetimes. No, it's just a hard pass. So, not even going to start that. But an interesting idea nonetheless to think about whether what we're doing is crossing the line from working with a deity or with ancestors to worshiping and obeying and giving up our free will. Anyway, that's probably enough on that subject at the moment. It's a short little video, but I think it's a good subject to consider. And I'm curious about your thoughts on the whole matter, always. And I appreciate your feedback, guys. It's been interesting for me, for sure. So, as the new year approaches, blessed be to everyone. This has been Siofra's Magic Alcove, and I'm Siofra Bradigan.